Ladies and gentlemen, a very special podcast today. We've got a real estate savant, a leader of many people, one of my early church leaders kind of growing up, and dear friend, a family friend for a long time, Kenny Parcell. Thanks for coming on, Kenny.
Hey, thanks for having me. I love Dawson because he would always say, hey, can you do a podcast today? So thanks for giving me a little notice and thanks for having me.
No, dude, it's awesome. And Kenny, I gotta compliment you on just the hustler that you are. I went to lunch with a friend this past week, and he out of nowhere he tells me, he's like, hey, I'm selling my home, and I'm like, oh, no way. And he's like, yeah, I'm moving. And I'm like, you're moving? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, how do you? He's like, yeah, I put my home up on the market, and day one it was sold. I was like, oh, no way. And he's like, I sold it to a guy you might know. You ever heard of Kenny Parcell? And I was like, yeah, I know him. I know who that is. And he's like, yeah, dude, he came in and he was nice. He knocked on the door, shook our hands, and bought our house. And I was like, dude, Kenny is out there hustling, making moves, even at 50 plus. So
hey, yeah, my kids are hungry year round, so I got to make something happen.
No, but like one thing that I loved about like hearing that, and just to kind of give like a backstory into Kenny. I mean, Kenny, you're a great real estate investor. You have a real estate team. You sell a bunch of properties every year, and just an all around like great leader in that arena. But I think one of the things I really liked about just hearing that about you is like a leader leads from the front. Like they are the greatest leaders are great foot soldiers, and so for you, like to see you kind of going out and making like deals happen and just for your team, I was like, here's a guy that knows how to go out and like make stuff happen. But was that something that you've always had, like since you were little?
That's a good question. I just think you always try to be better today than you were yesterday, Dawson, better tomorrow than you were today. So I always just try to be improving. I try to do 3 things every day. I try to do something hard that makes my life uncomfortable. Why? Because if you only do easy things, your life will become hard. But if you do hard things, your life will become easy. I try to do something fun that brings joy to my life. Because if you're smiling and you're happy, you're radiating happiness. And the third thing I try to do is I try to make sure I'm doing something for somebody else. And so for whatever reason, I'm not that smart a guy, but if I do those 3 things, do something hard, do something fun, do something for someone else, things seem to work. And so I just stuck with me my whole life.
I love it. Well, so every year at Salem Days, we go play mud volleyball, and like you're always there. Like you have a great your team. I will say this: you guys have gotten better over the years.
Well,
and
because we got rid of my son Cade.
Hey, shout out to Cade. Cade's out there he's out in Texas right now. When he comes back and watches this, we love Cade and we miss him. Kenny, you're ripped. Every time I've ever played mud volleyball, you're shirtless, scuba making things happen.
I look really good to the blind lady from 100 yards with cataracts.
No, but I think one thing that's so cool is like you're really good at like balancing a lot of arenas. Obviously you're good at your work life. You have a beautiful family, and you're good at like keeping your health. How do you make sure that those all kind of stay in check? Guys listening to this when they're out selling in the summer, I think a lot of times they get really, really focused on sales, and they'll sometimes let their health slip, relationships slip. And I think a lot of times when you let those arenas slip, it affects you negatively in a business arena.
Yeah, I think you always, Dawson, all throughout your day, you're going to get off true north. You always throughout your day are going to have to reset. I mean, you can go make a sale and you're feeling pretty high, and then you may get 3 or 4 doors slammed in your face, and people say, hey, blankety blank and blank. And then you may get a few degrees off. The big thing is throughout the day is just always make course corrections. And so people that say they don't have time to work out, no, you just chose to sleep. Or I didn't get, I don't have time for this. Well, everybody has the same amount of time. The billionaire and the beggar have one thing in common. They have the same amount of time. It's what you choose to do with your time. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I just continue to try to get up earlier or try to sleep faster because, you want to make some priorities.
I love that. And Kenny, I feel like I want to jump into this. Kind of give us your backstory. You have an amazing backstory of kind of like how you came to be the man that you are, and creating your family, and your real estate empire. What are some things you did kind of in the beginning that shaped your current career?
I think I was just hungry for it. I wanted to get out of the situation where I grew up, and I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be the first college graduate. My parents never graduated from high school, and so I was just always just driven. I always had like a little chip on my shoulder. My mom would always say, "Whose name's on the back of your jersey?" And I'd say, "Mine," And she'd cuss like a sailor. She'd say, "It's effing mine." And she goes, "You need to go play for every poor kid that doesn't get a chance." And so I was, you always have just a little chip on your shoulder.
Well, and what I think is awesome about that is you need to have a purpose. Whenever you go into a job, a sport, you need to have something that's pushing you beyond just like the current play or the current moment. You need to have something like that that's like, oh, this gets me out of bed. This gets me excited. I'm working for the poor kid that never had a chance. I want to provide an opportunity. For guys out selling this summer, a lot of them like they're going out hoping to change their stars, get into their first home, get in their second home, start a business in the future. I guess for you though, like is with all that you know about real estate and stuff like that, like obviously it's been a great avenue to create wealth and a platform for yourself. These guys, a lot of their goals is that like, hey, I want to get into my first home and stuff like that. Knowing the current market and all that stuff, what would you recommend to like a guy that's going to go out and try to like have a big summer? Like what should be his first step into like getting into a house?
First thing they need to get into a house is find somebody that they can trust. If that's me or somebody, they need to get somebody that can trust. That's not trying to just make a commission, but truly cares to help you make a big decision. The average net worth of a renter is $8,000. The average net worth of a property owner is $320,000. The best way to build wealth in this country is through real estate. It's 1/5 of the GDP. And so I would go sacrifice today so you can have a better tomorrow. And so I would go hustle out there. They're working with nobody's better than Dawson Scott. We were talking before this, and I know Dawson's father and mother real well, but I'm like, Aaron, Dawson's special. He is not going to be the puzzle piece of the Utah County Mormon. Dawson is going to break the mold, and that's what you've done. I mean, I've been saying that since you were 12. And so super proud of you that you've made good choices. And you're blessing the lives of everybody that's watching this, that they can go and create wealth and get a shot in the arm and go really build something and then maximize your money. But don't buy something unless it pencils. That's what I always tell people. It has to make sense.
You helped me get in my very first property ever. And I remember just being blind and just being like, oh, dude, I don't know what to do. And I would always ask you, like, should we do this? And you're like, shoot, I don't know. You're like, but he's like, does it? And you'd always refer back to that. Does it pencil? And I think a lot of times when you're budgeting your time, your energy, in this job, like when people are going out, I think a lot of times everyone in sales, like, what's the magic word? What's the magic thing to say? And you told me this too. You're like, base hits wins championships. And I think a lot of times don't look for the silver bullet or the crazy like trick shot. Just try to find a good move that makes sense, and that success builds upon itself.
Yeah, I mean, I've missed opportunities all over the place, Dawson, where I could have invested a bunch of money and made a bunch of money, or I could have invested some money and lost a bunch of money. I think the guy that leads, or the female that leads the league in homers, also leads the league in strikeouts. And so at a young age, if you guys can make base hits and get people on base, it's going to tee you up to win championships. And so that's what I always say. It's got to make sense, and don't swing for the fence because you may lead the league in strikeouts.
So obviously, like myself, people listening, we're kind of like starting out our careers in real estate, getting a lot of that stuff. I mean, you're a seasoned veteran now.
Very seasoned.
Yeah, a mogul and all that. Was there some deals in the beginning that you passed up on that you were like, oh, like, is there any deal that comes to mind? You're like, oh, I wish I could have gone back.
No, I think you can always look back and say, what if? I try not to live my life in the rearview mirror. There's things I could have done better. I think everybody's struggling with the Goliath. Everybody wishes they would have done something or slayed a different battle. But I think you try to make the best decisions with what you have, and you just move forward. And you miss some, and you make some, and you go with it. And it is what it is. I don't look back and say all the things I could have done.
Yeah.
Because it's been a good ride, and it's been really good for me.
That's cool. When I was starting out in sales, like you were someone that I talked to early about like books and literature, or just kind of like putting my mind with the right thoughts and ideas. What are some current reads, or maybe some stuff that you read recently? Like, I'm interested because I want to know, but like, what are some books that you're like, hey, these are staple for a good sales rep?
I think you all are in a unique skill. So mine's a long-term relationship sell per se. You only got a shot to make something happen in a very short amount of time, right? And you're never probably going to see these people. So I think it's all different. But one of my I go to probably once a quarter is 25 Ways to Win with People. It's a John Maxwell book. And it's good. It's just a good refresher. I mean, if you write a book, I'd buy it and read it. You'd probably, New York Times bestseller. But,
Oh, dude.
but I just, more now I'll listen to something. If I'm exercising, I'll try to listen to a podcast or something. I just am always trying to be improving. Your best investment is yourself.
100%. 100%. And so, I mean, obviously, you invest in you invest in real estate. I'm just curious, is there anything else that you like put a lot of money, time, energy into to like come back and help you win?
I don't know. I think you're always just trying to be better in all aspects of your life. I think the sooner you realize that everybody's struggling and be less critical. Sometimes people think you need to be, you go sell, you got to buy a property. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't, because maybe you're not going to be here for long term. Or hey, you come home and you got to get married quick. Or well, why do you? I think you be you. That's always what I tell people. You be you, and you go. The best thing about living in this country is we're not in Ukraine. We're not being bombed. We're not all these things. We get you all get the opportunity to go out and bust your hump and work really hard and have a chance to make a lot of money. And that lot of money, when you come back and you're my age and you're old and decrepit, you're gonna look back and say, look at what that money I made this happen in this summer, and look how the trajectory changed my life.
Yeah. No, 100%. I was reading some books back in like the about some like business entrepreneurs in the 1850s, and there was a guy, he couldn't get a job for like a year. He couldn't find like something solid to like an actual career where he was getting paid. And when he finally did land a job, he called it a work day, and he celebrated it every year for the rest of his life. And they said that he celebrated it more seriously than his birthday. And so just the opportunity, I think a lot of times people are like, oh, I got to go into work today. Oh, this is going to be like, oh, I got to go make this happen. But viewing it as just like, hey, this is a huge blessing. Like, I'm so lucky I get to be here and do this is
yeah,
huge.
you're giving your people, you're giving your people everything to be successful. There's nothing you're sending your people out there to do that can't make them a success. Sometimes jobs you're limited to what your cap is. It doesn't matter how hard you work. I love salespeople. I love being sales. I've had opportunities. One year I had all kinds of job offers, and people were trying to give me a big 7-figure salary. And I'm like, no. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because I'm not a salary guy. Because I want to go eat what I kill. And I want to go be me. So I don't want to be to where I got to be at work at these times and somebody I have to answer to. I want to answer to myself.
Well, even with a salary position, we're all way closer to the wild than a lot of times we feel. Like, a lot of times people are like, oh, I just want something that's secure, that's nice. And I'm like, well, then be the one that creates the secure, the nice, the good path, because at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of things that could go wrong for a lot of different people. And then if you don't have that skill of creating your own environment and situation, you're going to be subject to somebody else's.
Yeah, your salespeople are going to get an opportunity to the best life education. I'm a BYU graduate. I'm grateful. I was the first person to ever go to college, let alone graduate. But then at the end of the day, Dawson, that Shang dynasty and the history of Civ of 2000 BC, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But what they learn out there with your company is going to matter, and it's going to help be a better spouse, a better partner, a better father, a better parent, better mother, all those things, better business colleague. That's why this is so important. This is why people should be excited and fired up and get, hell yeah, it's either good morning, Lord, or oh, Lord, it's morning, and you get to choose every day which one it is.
I love that. And so, Kenny, you're a phenomenal marketer. Like, I that's one thing I've known about you. And a lot of these guys watching, part of this job is bringing other people into it, and you're compensated for that, for recruiting, for bringing people on. And it's like long-term relationship sales, which is basically what I feel like real estate is.
Sure.
What are some things you've done over the years to put your name out there that could like apply to someone that's trying to get a ton of people to come with them out each summer to make something happen? Basically building a network.
Yeah, I think you have to believe in the product first and foremost, and then you want to help. What good is it to go make all this money and then not have your friends along with you? You don't want to you don't want to be the rich friend and everybody else is down here. If you're having a good experience, you want to bring up your friends and get them excited, and there's some overrides. But one, more than the override, is to really bless their life and say, here, let me help you get ahead in life. And then that's why it's exciting. But you got to be excited about what you're doing. You can't go in there and be all Debbie Downer and Dawson, come work for this company. And door-to-door sales is tough. I don't know that I could do it. But you never want to get too high or too low, because once again, that compass, you got to be true north all the time. You're going to make a sale. Some days are going to be better than other days, and some weeks, and hot Texas sun is hot. But every day, what I love is you don't know who's on that other door.
Yes, that's true. And I think with what you've done and kind of like some of the early hurdles, what are some early like opposition that you've had or throughout your career that you're like, hey, maybe it was tough to be steady Eddie and coming in every day and making things happen?
Yeah, I think it all the time is. Every day is tough for some people. For me, I haven't set an alarm since high school. Like I just get up. It's just time to get up. And so for me, you just got to be the master of your craft and you got to work on your dialogue. When I first started in real estate, my first client, Dawson and I were talking about this, was my college professor. I wrote a paper about real estate, and she called me up and said, I need to sell. She started referring me to other professors who referred me to other professors. And the first thing they'd say, how long have you been doing real estate? And I'd say, it seems like forever and a day. How long have you been a professor? 10 years. And I go, yeah, seems like that long for me too. And then we'd just go with it. And so I think you got to have your door approach and be ready to field those questions.
Well, and if you're a first rep and you're listening to this, I think that's a really good thing too when you're out selling. If it is your first week or first day or whatever, be like, oh, dude, it feels like I've been out here forever and a day. And kind of like, you don't know everything in the beginning in anything, in any type of sales journey. And I think a lot of times when this podcast comes out, the majority of our guys will be like just starting the summer. And I think in any job, you don't know everything. You never can. But you can make an educated decision and just with what you do know, take one step forward. And all of a sudden, I feel like things get lighter, things get better. You're able to see more of the puzzle.
Yeah, I think you got to. They always have me come back to speak to the BYU Business School, which is always funny because I probably flunked out of the BYU. I probably had the most D credit allowed there. But with that being said, I always say the first rule in negotiations, and this is Kenny Parcell speaking. I don't research this, is likability. And so every time you knock on the door, you got to be likable, and the chances has got to be so much more if you're likable and you're smiling and you're happy and you engage them. If you're not likable, it's going to be tough. And so you've got to put on that, and your training's as good as anything, but you got to be likable.
Yeah. Well, and just the basic things of like smiling, making sure that you're engaging with people, making a personal touch. Like, I feel like sometimes that gets so lost. People in business are like, I want to be big. I want to create this structure. Give me the Excel sheets. And it's like, those are all fine and dandy, and you do need to have some knowledge in that. But the main part is, how can I be likable, get in front of people, shake the hands, put forth the proper energy?
Yeah, and it's not just about sales. It's actually providing a product. It's providing a service. And you got to believe in the service you're providing. If you don't believe in it, you probably ought to go sell something else.
Steve Jobs, there's a video of him or a cameo where he's talking, and he's like, the Japanese companies, he's like, they make amazing products, and they're known for that. But in their marketing, you never hear them say, hey, we're the best quality or stuff like that. He's like, it just goes implied because they put out such amazing products.
No.
And so I think if you can do that in anything, whatever job you have, if you're a real estate agent, if you're a summer sales rep, if you just make sure that you're putting your best product forward, people are going to feel that, and they're going to want to work with you, learn from you, or buy from you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Your training's, once again, it's the best investment to invest with you all, to put into their time. Yeah, they're going to make a lot of money, but it's also going to change their life and their people skills.
Yeah. So, Kenny, if you had to go back, let's like rewind back the clock to when you're 20. What are some things that you would do? Or what's just some advice you would whisper in somebody's ear to like create a real estate portfolio, a work, like a path to like creating wealth? What's some things you would tell that person in order for them to be more successful?
Yeah, for me, it always just made sense. I've made a bunch of money in stock market. I've lost a bunch of money in stock market. The problem is you don't know it. You don't know that balance sheet. You can't touch it. You can't feel it. And so for me, real estate just made sense. I still own my first house I ever purchased when I was going into my sophomore year in college. And everybody told me I was an idiot. My friends that were going to the NFL were buying Jeep Grand Cherokees, and I was just driving my Nissan Sentra buying another rental property. For me, it made sense. I knew it. I could touch it. I could feel it. I knew what my payment was because it was a fixed interest rate. I knew what the rents were going to be. And if nothing appreciated, I knew somebody was going to be paying off my debt. Thank goodness the appreciation, the first house I purchased was $64,000. Let's just say it's maybe close to $500,000 now. So it's, and that's over a long period of time. But even if it didn't appreciate like that, I had somebody paying off my debt, and it just made sense.
Mm. One of the things that I've always loved about you, Kenny, is you're thrifty. You make sure to take care of your wealth, protect it, and also you're just a good steward, I would say, of what you have. And I think a lot of times when people get their first big check or stuff like that, they'll go and blow it on a car or things that aren't going to benefit them in the long term. And I also think you're really good with your time. One of my favorite stories with you when we were going out and looking at my first home, I hop in your car and there's all these envelopes with they're envelope might be the right word, but they're these leather suitcases with coins in them.
Oh, yeah.
And I ask you, I'm like, hey Kenny, what's this? And you're like, oh, these are quarters from all the different all my different units. You're all the tenants will put in a quarter to wash their clothes, and I go collect them myself every month.
Yeah, it was 4 quarters, but yeah, I was just a side hustle. It just made sense that when I had 4 plexes, I'd say I'm going to put these coin laundry in, and people were like, that's stupid. You're going to be a coin collector. And it just always, I figured, hey, if I can get X amount, it's going to take 12 months to pay them off, to get my return on investment. And so once a month I still go around and empty out a bunch of quarters, and it just made sense.
I love it. Do you know Deion Sanders?
Yeah.
I've really liked his marketing strategy, his persona, he kind of puts out online. But he had something that I really, really liked where he was at a smaller college. It was before he was at Colorado, and he's coaching there, and he noticed that the grass wasn't cut. And so what he did is he's like, hey, he's where's the lawnmower? And they're in practice, and he goes out and he starts cutting the grass. Yeah. And just making sure that hey, everything's right and in line. And kind of what you're talking and making sure everything pencils, doing those little things. That's something that I've always noticed about you. You're good at making sure that things make sense and that the little things are being taken care of.
Yeah, I think it's for all your people out there that are going to have a big sizable income, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. Because the thing you have to figure in, the government wants to get their cut.
Yeah.
And so how can you maximize your take? And real estate, there's some ways to depreciate and some tax savings and whatnot. And so for me, it just made sense. And so find somebody that knows those things that can hold your hand, if it's me or if it's someone else, that can say, look, here's how you can structure to maximize the most amount of money. Because it really isn't how much you make, it's how much you keep. And keep in mind, all those people that want to go buy, I think you should reward yourself. I still do. Every occasionally I was like, I got to go buy something. Because what's a 4 anyway? But buy something that hopefully is going to be an appreciating asset compared to a depreciating asset. Interest never sleeps. You can either be the slave to interest and it's working against you, it's the worst employee, or the best employee. And so for me, I've always just tried to maximize that interest ability and appreciation.
I love it. So with that, being able to invest well, using your time, creating business, you have to have the ability to say no to things, opportunities, situations. You got so much going on. And I think a lot of times when people are starting out, they're like, oh, if I could just find the right situation, or if it just came to me. I think someone like you have to be very disciplined to say no to a lot of different things. How do you decide what's worth your time and what's not worth your time?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's always about money either. Here's what I do know. There's opportunity costs in all things. There's always an opportunity cost. Hey, I want to go eat the dozen donuts. That's great. Go eat them, but just know there's an opportunity cost that you're going to have to burn those donuts if you want to stay fit. And so what's that worth? What's your time worth? And I think it's what's the time of, you go talk to somebody that's terminally ill, what's their time worth? And everything's a little bit more valuable on the time than it was maybe 20 years earlier. And so for me, I don't want to be that person on the deathbed saying, I wish I would have or could have or should have. And I'm just trying to use those things to be the best I can with my current time that I have. We all have the same amount of 24 hours. It's what you choose to do with your time. For me, I just choose to sleep a little less than some other people because I'm just trying to get the most out of it.
I love it. So North Stars are big in life, like having something to chase or to go after, or something to motivate you. Like where you're at, like what are some current North Stars you're like, hey, this is
Hey,
a
I
goal.
wanted to be on the podcast with you. I mean, I got to check that off my bucket list. So, yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out too. I don't think you ever. I'm the very worst of always being in a hurry, riding my Harley or snowmobile in the backcountry. Hey, we're going to try to get here. And sometimes I don't take the time to say, man, look at that phlox tree in the snow and look how beautiful this sunset is, or this and that. I think sometimes we forget to enjoy the ride and enjoy the journey. It's just not trying to hike to hit the summit. It's the journey of the summit.
I love that. One of my biggest regrets for me in my sales career is sometimes was so stressed about making a deadline, making sure we went from red to black. And I think sometimes and obviously those are very important things, but I wish sometimes I would have like laughed a little longer, had a little more fun, because at the end of the day, like your time's finite. You only have so much.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think if for the group out there, and Dawson's going to kill me, if you're killing it and you had so many sales today and there's still 4 hours left and you've been wanting to go to the surf park or something, screw it. Call it a day. Go reward yourself and go to the surf park, because you know why? You're going to be so much better the following day. Trust me on this. The next day you're going to sell more because you just had a total reset and you rewarded yourself. Now, you can't just go sit in your apartment all day and think, sales suck, because you're not doing it. And don't go to the surf park if you didn't hit your goal. But if you hit it and you're killing it, it's okay to say, hey, let's go grab a nice steak dinner tonight and reward yourself, so the next day you're like, let's go do it again.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I used to feel guilty like when I would do stuff like that. When I was first starting out, I was like, oh no, like there needs to be a new goal, a new vision. And it's like, no, like sometimes you earn it. And when you have earned it, giving yourself the time, if you are a high performer, to be like, no, dude, like I am going to go to the water park today and we're going to like take care of this. Make sure there is a goal that you are hitting, but you need those resets in order to be creative.
Yeah, and I still struggle with it. It's not something that you just learn when you're 20 or 25 or 30. I mean, I'm almost 51, and I'm still doing the reset from here. I'm going to go hit Sundance and go bomb down a few runs just because, you know what, season's over on Sunday, and I'm going to go hit a few. But I've got to remind myself. So it's not something you just learn and you always do. You're always resetting to true north.
Yeah, I love it.
It's good advice.
No, dude, Kenny, thank you so much for being on the pod today. I've always, ever since I was little and you were teaching my Sunday school or I was in Young Men's, I've always looked up to you and I've learned a lot. We just want to thank you for being on and appreciate you, man.
Hey, appreciate this. I want to say this about Dawson because I love the guy. What people don't know, or they may not know, or they see who you are today, but they don't see the Dawson Scott that I saw. And they don't see, and I'm getting emotional, but truly an incredible basketball player that put a ton of time in your backyard that nobody ever saw. And then you got to high school and you got kind of you got a raw deal. Because life isn't fair. That's one thing I do know. And life wasn't fair. And it was like, man, that really bites for Dawson. But it was fun to see how you then pivoted and you used that bad experience on high school basketball of seeing that you really could have contributed, but really been an incredible athlete. And you didn't get the opportunity, but you pivoted and you used those hardships to make you who you are today. And so I think that's what, for everybody, yeah, they can see Dawson Scott didn't get to be where Dawson Scott is today without hard things.
Yeah.
You made hard things and you use those to end up being an asset and pivoting. And so you're going to have hard days out there on door-to-door sales because they're hard. That's not, if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? And if it was easy, everybody would make a six-figure income over the summer. It's not. But the people that do hard things and pivot like you will end up having a pretty good life. But if you dwell on it and say, woe is me, life isn't fair, God, why did this happen? Then I wonder how your life would have been if you would have been the superstar in high school, because you could have been, if you would still be where you're at today. You may have. Or you might have been just things would have been easy and then you'd have done something else. So I think it's what you make out of it.
And Kenny, I know you're a phenomenal person at like when tough things come up. You're a good person. It's just like, hey, I'm gonna keep moving. I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna keep going. And I've always like I've looked up to you as an example in that. I feel like I've learned a lot from you in that way. And I think that was for me one of the greatest experiences of my life is like putting all my time, energy, and effort into my high school career, failing, and then,
but it wasn't at the time. It wasn't a great experience at the time.
Yes.
You now reflect, and it was a great time. But at the time, it sucked, and it's a lot of self-doubt. It's a lot of self-depression. It was a lot of slaying that Goliath. But now it's that you kept persevering. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's the thing that's important. When you're in it, you think there's no way out. It's
Yes.
pretty dark.
No, 100%. And that's how I felt. Like that's how I feel now. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was so cool that I like because then 4 months after my high school career, I go to do summer sales, and I was with an environment where I felt like I could be successful, people who loved me, wanted to take care of me. And then all of a sudden I was like, dude, no, you can achieve with just the right group. And I learned that lesson young, which was awesome.
But good for you that you learned it in the University of Alabama. If you like football or you don't, if you like them because they're so good, but all over in the University of Alabama in Nick Saban's office, because I've been there, it says how you play without the ball is a direct reflection of what type of teammate you are. How you play without the ball is a direct reflection of what type of teammate you are. So when you're killing it and you have 4 or 5 other people in your apartment that they're not killing it, what kind of teammate are you? Are you that guy that's going to be rubbing it in their face, or are you going to say, hey, let's role play some door approaches? Because eventually, if you're elevating them, you're going to have some down days. And what type of teammate are they back to you? Because we're all on the same team.
Yes.
And so it's how you help elevate that other teammate. And so I think that's, one thing. If you're that successful in the other apartment, it's not rubbing their nose in it and saying, hey, look at me. They're looking up to you, but it's your job then to help make them course corrections, to say the right catchphrase, to get them in the door to make the appointment.
Well, and summits are so much more beautiful when you can experience them with your friends. When you're looking over the valley and at the peak, you want to make sure that they can see it too. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned in leadership is like when you do get to that top point, make sure you can help as many people get on that as you can.
Because it's never about you.
Yes.
It's about everybody else.
100%. I think Zig Ziglar has that old saying where you can have anything you want in your life if you can help enough other people get what they want.
Amen.
And just I think helping them, like I think helping anyone is really like one of the only things I think you can take with you in all stages of life. And so learning to have that as like one of the important metrics of success, I think is just so key. But Kenny, you are the man, dude. Thanks so much for being on here. I was nervous texting you. I was like, dude, I hope, like, I know with all you've got going on, all the different responsibilities, your family, your friends, you've got a busy schedule, so I appreciate making time.
Well, I love you. Super proud of you.
Love you, brother. Over and out.